Or I mean, maybe it's not fair to say Russia because the Eastern Germany, they had this leader.
Mhm.
I don't remember his name, but he was like devoted Stalinist. Hello guys,
Hi everyone,
I am Waldemar.
and I'm Weronika.
Today we are watching a video called How the Berlin Wall Worked.
Time for some education.
Yeah, we have some standard videos, so now it's time to educate ourselves. And we are from Poland, if in case you don't know it, so we pretty much know something about the subject. It's not like we are...
do. Yeah, we're not completely ignorant.
Yeah. Also, I watched the video of Oversimplified about the Cold War. You haven't seen it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I also know things from that. I watched the movie called The Bridge of Spies, which also like touches the subject. You haven't seen that one too, right?
No. What a surprise. I remember some information from books that we learned, we read at school as well, some compulsory reading, something from history. I don't know how much. I think enough not to be ignorant, but I'm definitely looking to deepen the knowledge.
Yeah, I remember I was under the misconception for a long time, but it was many years ago, because I thought that the Berlin was at the center of the Iron Curtain, you know? I didn't know that the Berlin was basically in the east part of the Germany. So I thought it was like the Iron Curtain was...
Just happened to go exactly through
Yeah, I
Berlin.
thought it was going through the Germany, and then there was a Berlin somewhere here, and that's why there was an East Berlin and the West Berlin. And it was much later that I found out that the whole Berlin is in the Eastern Germany, in the communist part, but the western part of the Berlin was under the influence of the Western countries.
Yeah.
And it was the only place in the Eastern Germany that was the capitalist. So I learned later that it was because of those arrangements that were made after the Second World War between the Stalin and the Americans and the British and French, I think too. So that was one thing that I learned later. But like I said, I know something about the Berlin Wall, so I wonder if I will learn something new from this video. Also, I remember I watched this Polish historical channel, and they have a video about escapes
from one side.
from Eastern Berlin to Western Berlin. That it was a process that was going on for all the time from the end of the World War until the abolishment of the Berlin Wall, and that they have very different methods of escaping, and it was evolving over the years. Like at the beginning it was much easier to escape because there was no wall. After that the wall was created, so they were going using the canals, the sewers.
The sewers, yeah.
Yeah, some buildings they were doing the underground, the dig.
The trenches. Or trenches are not.
No, not the
trenches. They're not
trenches.
underground. Yeah, they're like
they were digging
Yeah,
underground
like tunnels.
to go to the Western Berlin. So yeah, I wonder if this will be anything new, but this video is pretty popular, so I hope it's just interesting.
Yeah, so the first time watching for both of us then this time.
Yeah, we haven't seen this before. You ready?
I am ready. Let's go.
Imagine having to split a city into two completely separate parts. Roads that used to connect are now dead ends. Your job on the other side of the city inaccessible, and the neighbor across the street that you used to see daily, you will perhaps never speak to him again. The Berlin Wall did exactly that, separating East and West for almost 30 years. For this video, I've animated the various development stages of the wall in order to understand the design of this unique piece of architecture. This is how the Berlin Wall worked. Living in Berlin before the wall was built was a strange life. You could move around the entire city freely, but you were either an East Berliner or a West Berliner. After the Second World War, the victorious nations had divided the German city into several parts. The Soviet occupation zone ultimately became the territory of East Germany, a socialist state, and the western part of Berlin remained legally occupied, but in all practicality, it belonged to West Germany, a capitalist state. Socialism and capitalism 2 different nations, and even 2 different currencies, separated only by streets. Trains connecting the different parts of the city would make announcements: next station, last stop in the eastern zone. Many people lived in one part of the city but worked in the other. East Berliners took jobs in the West in order to benefit from the stronger currency, while West Berliners got their haircuts in the East at prices that were much cheaper to them. And in a way, both systems tried to outdo the other. In West Berlin, a multitude of stores sprang up on the Kurfürstendamm Street, shop windows filled with the latest brand name products of Western consumer culture. While just a few streets away in East Berlin, there was Stalinallee, a street that was transformed into a boulevard full of buildings in the style of socialist classicism.
Beautiful.
But this open coexistence of 2 systems wouldn't last long.
Why they are always so empty? Every time you see some clips, either from Russia or like North Korea, all those communist countries, they always have those empty streets,
Yeah.
no cars, no people.
They're just going very fast from place to place. There's no time for wandering around.
They are all at work, all working in factory right now.
Long. On the 13th of August 1961, Berlin woke up to a divided city. The East German government closed the border, which means that families were split apart. Though officially stating that this was necessary to protect their country, it was an effort to stop their own citizens from fleeing to the West, where opportunities, wages, and freedoms seemed greater.
Yeah, there was this John Kennedy. Yeah, the president was John, the prosecutor was Robert, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so there is this famous quote of his that he said that capitalism is not perfect, but at least we don't have to hold our people with force.
Yeah,
At the
that's a
start,
strong thing to
this
say.
was just a wall in name. It mostly consisted of fences and loose pieces of barbed wire, manned by guards. There were some unguarded stretches, and it was even possible to jump across. To make escaping more difficult, construction immediately began on a more permanent wall, made out of concrete and topped off with barbed wire coil around a Y-shaped metal arm. But this is not how the wall looked everywhere. A shortage of building materials meant that in the first years, just 10% of the border was built like this. And there was another issue. Sometimes the border between West and East Berlin went straight through housing blocks, houses that now had to become part of the wall. The East German authorities forced people out of their homes and filled the windows with bricks. Sometimes, however, they would forget a window. On August 17, 1962,
Yeah, this is
Peter
how people
Fechter discovers one
escaped.
such house, making up part of the wall.
Through the
Peter
windows.
is frustrated with the East German government as they won't let him see his sister that lives on the other side of the wall. Together with his colleague Helmut, he fantasizes about an escape to the West. The 2 of them see people inside the house, and in order not to be noticed, they take off their shoes and quietly creep in. By sheer luck, they quickly find the open window, and from here they have a clear view of the road to freedom. A fence, then a clear strip, and finally a wall. It seems doable, except for the fact that they are in plain sight of the nearby border guards. Suddenly, they hear voices behind them, and it is now or never. Peter and Helmut jump out of the window and climb the first fence. Then they are spotted, and immediately the guards open fire. Helmut dashes across the strip through a haze of bullets. As he scales the wall, he looks back and he sees his friend Peter frozen in place. The guards are closing in further, and they will have a clear shot soon. Helmut screams, and Peter finally springs into action. He makes it across the strip, but as he jumps up to scale the wall, he is hit mid-air and slumps down. Helmut can't help his friend. An entire 50 minutes passes as a crowd of onlookers gathers to see Peter lying on the ground, slowly dying at the base of the wall. Tragic stories like Peter Fechter's were widely covered in the West. But for the East German authorities, the only lesson learned was to increase the wall.
Of course, Russia.
Over the course of decades, the wall is consistently upgraded, with more and more increasing security features. What once was a single wall,
Or I mean, maybe it's not fair to say Russia, because the Eastern Germany, they had this leader.
Mhm.
I don't remember his name, but he was like devoted Stalinist. Like even when Soviet Union was going under all those, changes and liberations, you could even say, then he wouldn't move even an inch.
Mhm.
He was, because Soviet Union was distancing themselves from the Stalinist politics. There was the Khrushchev era, and then Brezhnev, Gorbachev,
Mhm.
and Soviet Union became slightly more liberal. But the guy who was in charge of the East Germany was very Stalinist in all his views. So living in the East Germany was sometimes even worse than living in Soviet Union. And he was the leader until like very late age, I think. Yeah, and even when there was the time that the Berlin Wall collapsed,
Mhm.
he wanted a military intervention, and he wanted the army to attack civilians, to shoot them, but the army refused.
How much of a bastard you have to be that the army doesn't want to follow you? And also, what a ridiculous idea that you live and wake up and go through your days every life realizing that your politics is putting a physical wall of bricks,
Yeah.
so that your citizens cannot escape. And you're like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna make it higher.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
you can understand that at the beginning they were like, okay, this is for the greater good, but
Mhm.
as the time went by, in decades after decades, it's only getting worse, and they couldn't wake up,
Yeah.
or they didn't want to wake up.
soon became a brutal border strip, cutting the city further and further apart. As improvements to the wall were made, escape attempts shifted to new methods, and the wall would be expanded again, a back and forth that was repeated until the last version of the wall was built. The version of the wall that became famous. From 1975 on, the East German authorities rolled out this version of the wall, a border virtually impossible for anyone to cross. And this is how it generally worked. Coming from the east, only the visual barrier made of concrete slabs can be seen. This was done so that the exact border fortifications are not visible, as this knowledge could be used to plan escape attempts. Just behind this barrier, the ground is covered in so-called Stalin's grass. These are mats made of steel needles that would pierce the foot
Stalin's
of
grass.
anyone trying to jump across. Next up is a signal fence consisting of barbed wire stretched over concrete posts. Anyone trying to scale this fence would quickly press the wires together, triggering an alarm and notifying the guards in a nearby watchtower. Watchtowers were manned 24/7 by 2 to 5 soldiers. These soldiers had a clear view of the whole border, with orders to
Excellent
shoot
use of
anyone
resources.
on sight. Trying to use brute force to break these sections would not work either, as behind the signal fence are several rows of tank traps, barring anyone from driving through with a vehicle. In the middle of this border zone is a path for soldiers to patrol the area, oftentimes accompanied by dogs. And behind this is the so-called death strip, a stroke of dirt stretching for miles in every direction, in full sight of the guard towers. Hiding is impossible, and if anyone somehow made it past here, they reach a part that is easily recognizable: the wall facing the western side. In contrast to the old wall, these elements had a foot-shaped bottom, which meant that no holes in the ground were needed for their construction. And instead of barbed wire on top, there were now pipes made of asbestos concrete. These pipes provided stability for the wall elements, and the East German authorities also hoped that they would decrease the prison camp feeling of the previous wall. But this was not the only reason for the change. The new concrete used was extremely smooth, with nothing to grasp onto. One thing the authorities didn't consider, however, is that this smoothness made the wall an easy target for graffiti from the western side. Graffiti that would dominate many of the 45,000 elements that were placed in Berlin. Artworks that would often mock the East German government resulted in an open gallery of sorts, highlighting the harsh difference between life in the West, where free artistic expression was possible, and life in the East, where this was unthinkable.
I often said on this channel that how much of your life depends on a chance. And when you are born, where you are born, your religion can be determined by the place you were born in. But it's especially highlighted in the case of the Berlin. You imagine that you lived there during the Second World War, and you changed apartments for some reason. You have a better job or something, and they offer you a different apartment. Yeah. So you changed it, and now you are in the Eastern Berlin. And if you wouldn't change, then you would have a good job, good life, freedom, and just because you moved 2 streets away, it's. But really, that's like it. There is not a better definition, better example of the communist system of the Soviet Union than the Berlin. To force people to put such an effort to force people to stay in this great system that was built to serve working class.
To serve everyone, but you need this.
Well, so by chance you want
tank protectors and other things that he mentioned. Yeah.
Exact numbers of victims from this wall are disputed, and it is something that to this day is being researched. But over the years, it was many who, just like Peter Fechter, were hoping for a better life on the other side of the wall.
Oh, they had pictures of them too.
But the Berlin Wall was only a small part of the division of Germany. In addition to Berlin, the whole country was also divided into 2 parts, and some people made daring attempts, risking their lives to try to get to freedom. For example, the 2 friends Günter Wetzel and Peter Strelzig, who wanted to build a better life for themselves in the West. And after coming across an article about hot air balloons, an insane plan was born. The 2 decided to build their own homemade hot air balloon to escape across the border. After everything is sewn together, the burner is started and the balloon takes off.
That is pretty clever, to be honest.
But then, immediately after taking off, a huge hole is torn in the top of the balloon, and they could crash to the ground from over 6,000 feet. I made a complete video about this spectacular balloon escape, with some of my most elaborate animations and illustrations. And I was able to interview Günther for this project, who told me how the daring escape attempt went.
Plötzlich kamen vom Boden 3 Scheinwerferstrahlen auf uns zu und nach kurzer Zeit ist auch unsere Flamme ausgegangen.
This documentary is part of my ongoing Nebula original series Underexposure, in which I create higher budget productions, such as my video about the Bin Laden raid, with detailed animations exploring how the raid
it's on
unfolded.
the Nebula, we already seen
Or
the
my
videos.
video about the Tenerife
see it a lot on the writing
the
channels
worst
that I follow as well.
aviation accident that ever happened. Videos that are not made for the YouTube algorithm, but unrushed storytelling. Nebula is a creator-owned streaming service where the likes of Johnny Harris, Wendover Productions, Real Life Lore, or The Present Past post their videos early, ad-free, and create higher-budget originals. The Present Past actually wrote the script for this very video with me, and he has his own fantastic video out about all the different borders in the world, which I would highly recommend checking out. So go to nebula.tv/neo and make sure that you use that very link so that you get 40% off on an annual plan. All my exclusive videos are up there, so thanks for the support and thanks so much for watching this video.
Oh, that's it.
Oh, I guess so.
Oh, that's kind of disappointing.
Well, there wasn't that much information, but the visuals were great, and I don't know, even saying that it wasn't a straight line, it's kind of, yeah, of course it wasn't, but it was good to see, and I didn't know how it worked physically when he described, all the contraptions and all the design and
that's
everything.
true. It was nice to see
It was
all
focused
those
on something
animations.
else, I think. It wasn't focused on why and,
Yeah, that's true.
He did say this video is about how the Berlin Wall worked, and this is what this video was about. So I think that's
Yeah, that's true. You're right. And when you look at it that way, then really I learned something new,
Yeah.
because I knew a lot about the history and why and for what. But yeah, you're right. To see how it literally looked like with those animations, with those traps,
Yeah.
with the Stalingrad.
It's just
You have,
It's always
you
like
have things named after the Western leaders, and they are mostly good things, like plans of. Now I have.
I don't know, like astrological theories or a new species of plants or I don't know anything else. But it's like when you watch a movie and you laugh because when they show you an evil guy, he has this like evil step and then he kicks a puppy and like you can see he's wearing a coat or something.
Yeah, that's
like,
Soviet Union.
Yeah, but it's just same with the Nazis and the Soviet Union. You have literal nails on the ground used to hurt people called after your name. They're called Stalingrad. And like, how can you think you're the good person? Like, how can you think you're the good guy? And same with the Nazis and some of the design of their armies and everything. Like, do you think you're the good guy or what is going on?
Sometimes it is more complicated because even the countries that you would say that they are good countries, they also do controversial things.
Yeah, of course.
And
I'm
they
just
also
joking,
have
but
lot under the nails. To you say under the nails, or is it like a Polish sentence?
I think it's a Polish thing. Behind the belt? I don't know. Actually, don't know.
But they did a lot of
Yeah,
nasty stuff.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that the design signifies whether you're good or bad. You can be, I don't know, a goth person and be very nice. But I'm just saying that some of this is just ridiculous.
Yeah. So as I was saying, there are countries that also did a lot of nasty stuff. But then you can argue because there are some reasons for that, good reasons or bad reasons. But there is some room for an argument. But with Soviet Union, there was this blunt propaganda, and it didn't add up. It was basically 2 + 2, and they say it's 5, and you had to accept it, or otherwise, you were the enemy.
It was more like top 2 + 2. It doesn't matter. Just don't think about it.
Like literally, there was this system of to make a normal person happy. I mean, normal, the average person, average worker, and yet they in all those countries the people were forced not to leave. It was not only in the Berlin that you could not leave. It was the same in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, in Hungary. I mean, you could go on a vacation, but only to a different country of the Eastern Bloc.
Yeah.
You could not go to like England or France for a vacation, for a holiday. And yeah,
when you're doing that, it's like ask yourself why, because if it's so much worse there and your system is working so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it would be the propaganda would be that you don't want people to fall prey to the horrible propaganda that the West spews, right? But if yours is so much obviously better, then you shouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And you can see that the West Berliners, they didn't felt the need to build a wall.
Yeah.
There was no wall on their side. It's not like when you see this, you might be under misconception, but I don't think you are. But some people might be under this misconception that the one side of the wall was the west side and the one was the east. No, the whole strip of the ground that they showed, it was all done on the eastern side of the Berlin.
Yeah.
They took part of and it was a big part of the city. They took a big part of the city just to build a wall there.
Yeah.
And the West was like, no
And the
no
chilling
problem.
part is, how they even said that they tried to make it less like a prison wall to the Westerners.
Yeah. They only, but it was only on that side.
Yeah, it's just.
They didn't care about how the East German people look at it, because they know that it's a prison. One thing I wonder when I saw this clip about the balloon, this escape attempt, I wonder if it was, probably it wasn't, because people would figure it out. But I thought about, would it be possible to make like a zip lines from one side of the city to the next, like from the buildings on the East Berlin to the West Berlin, and then you use those. How do you call it?
I don't know, but I know what you mean. Yeah, the sliding lines, the zip lines, I think, yeah.
And you go.
I think the watchtowers would have stopped that, but that, yeah.
But you go very fast.
You go over the watchtowers. And maybe they are not looking up. Yeah, that was a great video. Thank you for showing me.
I didn't show you. You found this.
I found it?
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Veronica, for showing to both of us.
Congratulations, Veronica.
I didn't know I found it. That's so great. Okay. Well, good job, me.
Good job, yeah. All right, thank you for watching. And if you have similar recommendations, please, as always, leave them under the comments because we read them and we try to watch them actually. If you liked it, subscribe. We are uploading videos every day.
Yep.
You can see what kind of videos we are uploading. So to do that, click on
There's
our
a
channel.
history playlist if you're only interested in that subject. There's one for Fat Electrician as well if you like that guy. You can see the playlists that we have and browse that way as well if that's what you're into.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.